Thanks, Peter. Well, if you have school-aged children, chances are that they've already talked to their classmates about the recent school shootings like the one in Uvalde, Texas. And you may be wondering how they're feeling and what they're thinking about the situation. Nikki Karnowski joins us this morning with some things to consider when we're having these conversations. Nikki, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me, Natalie. You know, tough conversations we have to have as parents and as educators out there today, but they're really those conversations we need to be having. Often kids have very different questions that we might have, and we really need to be in tune to that. According to the National Center for School Crisis and Bereavement, it's really important that we listen and ask what kids have heard so far. It's important to share that appropriate age-based information and also make sure it's appropriate to their emotional reaction. Those reactions can be linked to past trauma experiences and how closely they are also connected to the tragedy. So if they know someone in that situation, remember younger kids may have to talk and have conversations over and over because they need to digest things in those little chunks. So just some things to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously we haven't had one here, thankfully, in our area, but
yes.
it has been something that we've seen in a lot of different situations over these past couple of years now, especially with this newer one kind of surfacing.
Yes.
I guess, what are some things that some parents can do to help kids cope with these things, even though we might not be directly impacted as much?
Yes, I found a great list on the American School Counselor Association, and they have just gathered some great tips for parents. One of those, try to keep routines as normal as possible. You know, it can be tempting. Kids may want to say they want to skip school or activities, but if you can keep them involved in those, that's a good thing. Limit exposure to TV and devices and news. Be honest with kids, share age-appropriate information. You know, not too much, just enough. So that's where we have to really listen to those fears and concerns. Reassuring the kids, this is a big one. You know, the world is still a good place to be. There are just people who do bad things. And then, you know, it's important, this is one you might not think of, for families and adults to really assess and deal with their own responses to crisis and stress. I think we don't often realize until those things happen how we respond, or maybe some of the triggers we have. So being aware of that. And then this is a great one, I think, just rebuilding those attachments and the relationships. You know, sometimes we get busy, we haven't had just that one-to-one time maybe with kids or things like that. So taking time to just be with them and spend that quality time that they might even feel like they need more when these things are happening.
Yeah, absolutely, especially when you're that young, to have that kind of level of uncertainty. And these are some good tips there to kind of help you start that conversation a little bit. Absolutely. And of course, we also have a guide from the National Center for School Crisis and Bereavement that you mentioned. We're going to share that on our social media pages as well as CBS3Duluth.com there.
Yes, and we also have it right up there on the screen. It's schoolcrisiscenter.org. They have some good resources that can just help you have those conversations with your kids, and really resources for us, because you know, these are all new things we're having to deal with, and such a tragedy know, for everyone.
Absolutely. Well, Nikki, thank you so much for joining us today, sharing a little bit of insight there. And of course, for all of your lifestyle tips, you can join us here every Monday on CBS 3, and they'll be right back after the break.